My name is Marie. Standing on the balcony of my penthouse, overlooking the twinkling lights of Boston, I'm reminded of how far I've come. It all came to a head one holiday dinner, a moment that shattered the illusion I'd clung to for so long. The table was set with my mother, Elizabeth's, finest china. Crystal glasses sparkled under the chandelier, and the air was filled with the aroma of her signature roast turkey. The room was bustling with conversations about my sister, Victoria's, latest legal triumphs. Victoria was 28, a graduate of Yale Law, and well on her way to becoming a partner at a prestigious law firm. Meanwhile, I was the black sheep of the family, always an afterthought at these gatherings. As we were having dessert, I took a deep breath and set down my fork. I'm not going back to Stanford next semester. I'm focusing on my business full-time. I have clients and a plan to expand, I said. The clinking of silverware stopped abruptly. Elizabeth leaned back, her eyes narrowing. Your business. Is that what you call those little projects you play around with? They're not little. They generate revenue, I retorted, my voice steady. She slammed her hand on the table. Get out, you failure. The words cut through the room like a knife. Victoria smirked, and a cousin coughed awkwardly into his napkin. I felt the heat rise to my neck, but I held my ground. If that's how you see me, then I will. I stood up, my chair scraping the floor. No one tried to stop me. I went upstairs and packed my laptop, a few clothes, and my old backpack. Each item represented the life I'd been building in secret. When I came back downstairs, Elizabeth didn't even look up from pouring coffee, and my father, Henry, was chatting with a guest as if nothing had happened. I walked out into the cold night, closing the door softly behind me. I knew I'd never cross that threshold the same way again. The streets were quiet, and the only sound was the faint hum of my determination. I headed to the train station, not knowing what lay ahead. I grew up in Greenfield, a small town in Connecticut. It was a place where success was measured by Ivy League degrees and country club memberships. My parents were both high-profile professionals. Elizabeth was a well-known fashion editor, and Henry was a corporate lawyer. They were always focused on appearances and status. From a young age, I was different. While Victoria was excelling in school and socializing with the right people, I was more interested in taking apart old computers and learning to code. I loved the challenge of solving problems with code and the thrill of seeing my creations come to life. My parents didn't understand my passion. Elizabeth called it wasting time, and Henry would ask if I planned to be a tech geek forever. By my early 20s, the gap between us had become a wide chasm. They valued traditional success, while I valued innovation and the freedom to pursue my ideas. I found a tiny apartment above a 24-hour diner. It was cramped, with noisy pipes and a temperamental radiator. My furniture was all second-hand, picked up from yard sales and the curb on trash day. But it was my space, and from there, I launched my online marketplace for independent artists. I wanted to give potters, jewelers, and painters a platform to sell their work without being overshadowed by big e-commerce giants. I spent countless nights coding, refining the layout and payment systems until my eyes were sore. I reached out to shop owners, but most of them were skeptical. When they found out I didn't have a degree, their attitudes changed. Many stopped responding, and others politely declined. I was struggling to make ends meet, skipping meals and taking odd tech repair jobs to cover the hosting costs. One night, after another rejection email, I closed my laptop and stared at the water-stained ceiling. I began to wonder if my parents were right. Maybe without a degree, I'd never be successful. But the next day, I decided to give it another shot. I saw a free small business meetup on a community board and decided to go. The seminar was held in the back room of a public library. There were about 20 people, mostly in business casual, with a few in paint-splattered work shirts. The speaker was a woman named Lily Thompson. She was the founder of a successful logistics software company. She was down to earth, with her sleeves rolled up, speaking with the authority of someone who had overcome many failures. After the talk, I mustered the courage to approach her. I almost dropped my homemade business card as I introduced myself. I run a marketplace for artists. No degree, no investors, but real clients and sales, I said, trying to sound confident. Lily asked to see my customer data. I opened my laptop and showed her the list of sellers and their order histories. She scrolled through the spreadsheets, then leaned back. You're thinking too small. Instead of selling one item at a time, why not sell your order system to multiple shops? Her words were like a light bulb going off in my head. I'd been so focused on individual sellers that I hadn't considered turning my platform into software for retail networks. We talked late into the night, and by the time I left the library, I knew my business was about to change. The pivot was not easy. I had to strip down my old marketplace and rebuild it as a cloud-based inventory and order management system for artisan retailers. I spent weeks learning new coding frameworks, designing a better dashboard, and integrating shipping APIs. I made hundreds of cold calls, but most ended in rejections or silence. Then, one day, I received an email from the operations director of Pine and Cedar, a well-known artisan furniture chain with 12 stores in the Northeast. They wanted a demo of my system. I worked day and night to prepare the demo. When the call finally came, it lasted 45 minutes. At the end, the director said, "We've been looking for something like this for years. Send us the proposal." The contract was for $450,000, with half paid up front. I was in shock when I saw the signed agreement. It felt like a dream. For the next 2 months, I worked harder than ever, coordinating with their managers, customizing features for each store, and triple-checking all the integrations. The rollout was a success. There were no crashes or data losses, and the regional managers reported faster turnarounds and more accurate inventory counts. The owner of Pine and Cedar sent me a handwritten thank you card, which meant the world to me. Word spread, and soon I was getting referrals to other high-end retailers. The revenue was more than I'd ever imagined. I couldn't handle it all on my own anymore, so I hired 2 developers and a project coordinator. I kept my lifestyle simple, still living in the same small apartment and driving my old car. I didn't want my family to know about my success, as I was afraid they'd twist it into something negative. I learned that my parents were having financial trouble. Their mortgage payments were behind, and Elizabeth's health issues were piling up. So, I set up an anonymous community foundation to cover their mortgage and a private health trust to pay for her treatments. When Victoria's children were accepted into an elite private school, I arranged for them to receive academic enrichment grants. They all thought it was the kindness of strangers, and I was content to stay in the shadows. But that holiday dinner changed everything. I brought a folder filled with documents, including company valuations, bank transfer records, and trust agreements. I placed the folder on the table and said, "It's time you know the truth." I showed them the valuation report that placed my company's worth at $42 million. I explained that I'd been the one behind the foundation, the trust, and the grants. Victoria laughed and said, "So, you play with code and suddenly you're a millionaire?" I replied calmly, "I've built a company that serves clients across the country. I've been helping you all quietly because I just wanted respect." Elizabeth snapped, "You're lying." I stood up, tucked the documents back into the folder, and said, "If you think I'm lying, you won't miss the help. As of today, it's over." I left the house and booked movers the next day. I moved into a penthouse in Boston. The keys felt heavy in my hand, not because of their weight, but because they represented years of hard work and the achievement of something my family had said I couldn't do. My company's new headquarters opened on the top floor of a glass tower in downtown Boston. The office was modern and designed for collaboration. I attended my first industry gala, and people recognized me for my work, not my education. In the spring, I launched the Marie Innovation Fund, a grant and mentorship program for entrepreneurs without a traditional degree. The first grant went to a 23-year-old named Ethan Davis, who was developing a sustainable energy app. The program gained a lot of attention. Industry blogs, business journals, and even a national magazine featured it. Headlines called me a champion for non-traditional founders. Then, 2 weeks after the fund's launch, I received a call from Elizabeth. Her voice was softer than I remembered. "I'd like to see you, just to talk," she said. We met at a small cafe. She arrived in a simple coat, looking humble. We sat in silence for a while, sipping our coffee. "Finally," she said, "I was wrong about what matters. I can't change the past, but I'd like to know you as you are now." I set my cup down and said, "It starts with respect. No comparisons, no conditions." She nodded, and for the first time, there was no hostility in her eyes. We parted without making any promises, but the weight of the past was lifted. That weekend, I hosted a dinner on my rooftop. The city lights twinkled below, and the string lights swayed in the breeze. My team and the first grant recipients were there, sharing stories and laughter. As I looked around, I realized that this was my family, the one I'd chosen. I had finally built my own table, and I was ready to write the rest of my story on my own terms.